Happy to see
Hi,
you,
hi.
Daniele, here with me this time. I hope everyone can hear me well and with no problems and not like last week. And I hope we can learn well. I'm very excited to see all of you. Um, so I'll just repeat very shortly what I said at the beginning of last week, that I hope that this semester or this year we will try, we did it already last year, but the idea of the classes will be we're learning the parasha together, but every time we'll learn like a very specific topic or very specific point, and from it we will try to learn something that can be relevant to us, to our life, some kind of a works that we should do with ourselves. So the topic we're going to talk about today, the title I gave it was a spring, a well, and a pit. Actually, I wrote it differently in English in the paper. You'll see it soon. But this parasha that we're reading this Shabbat is Parashat Toldot. And in this parasha, we're actually talking about, we're hearing the story of Yitzchak. Until now, we heard the story of Abraham, our first father, and we heard a bit about Yitzchak, his son, but from now on, from this parasha, we have the story of Yitzchak, very, very detailed, and from next week, we'll hear more about his son, Yaakov. And I want us today to learn about a system that we have, that we can learn from Yitzchak, and I would say that for each one of the fathers, they are representing a different system, a different way of behaving. And I would like us to try to learn what was the way of Yitzchak and a bit about also the way of Abraham and Yaakov. And in general, what's very, very strong about Yitzchak is his job. Usually in the Torah, when we see that a person have a certain job or a certain profession, it's not just that, he chose to learn this in university, but it usually shows us something about his personality. For example, Abraham and Moshe and David, they were shepherds. And when you are a shepherd, usually you have this quality of being a leader. And we actually see that both Abraham and Moshe and David, all of them were leaders of something bigger. And when we see here Yitzchak, his work, his at least when you read the Torah, something which is very strong in his character, he was digging wells. It's repeating again and again in our parasha, and we will try to understand what does it mean to dig a well, to do this action of going deeply, and what does it mean to our soul. So first of all, let's read about the different wells that Yitzchak is digging. I brought it here, and let's count how many wells we read in the parasha, this specific parasha in one chapter. Let's see. So Yitzchak again dug the wells of water which they had dug in the days of his father Abraham, and the Philistines has stopped them up after Abraham's death, and he gave them names like the names that his father had given them. So first of all, we learn here that Abraham was also dug wells, something which previous in the Torah we don't hear it at all about it. But we hear also that Yitzchak is going to the same place, to the same well that Abraham was digging, and was covered already with sand, and he's digging it again. So this is the first, I would say, well that we hear that he's digging. And Yitzchak's servants dug in the valley, and they found there a well of living water. And the shepherds of Gerar quarreled with Yitzchak's shepherds, saying, "The water is ours." So he names this the well Esek, because they had contended with him. So this is the well number 2, which is called Esek. And they dug another well, and they quarreled about it also. So he named it Sitna. Sitna means like hatred in Hebrew. And he moved away from there, and he dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he named it Rechovot. And he said, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we will be fruitful in the land." So far, we have the well of Abraham, we have the well which called Esek that they were fighting on, the well of Sitna, which they were fighting on, and Rehovot. So this is number 4. And he built an altar there, and he called in the name of the Lord, and he pitched his tent there, and Yitzchak's servants dug a well there. And it came to pass on that day that Yitzchak's servants came and told him about the well that they had dug. And they said to him, "We have found water." And he named it Shiva. Therefore, the city is named Be'er Sheva until this very day. So this is, we hear first about Be'er Sheva from Yitzchak's side. So we found here 5 times that Yitzchak is digging wells. And first of all, just like a bit about numbers, we can also find that Yitzchak, the name Yitzchak in Gematria, in the numbers in Hebrew, is 208. And the word well, Be'er, in Hebrew, is 203. And if you add to it 5 wells that he was digging, you get to his name, Yitzchak. So something in his name, in his personality, was very, very strong connected. And the Zohar explaining that those wells that he was digging were actually, he was trying to dig a mikveh for Rivka and for himself, so he can purify himself and she can purify herself. And every time that he's trying to dig this mikveh, the Pelishtim are trying to cover it. And we'll go back to it later. So from here we see that there is very strong connection from Yitzchak to those wells. But Abraham, if we're trying to explain the way of his life, I wouldn't say that Abraham was a well. Abraham was more like a spring. Even when we're just reading the stories about Abraham, the spring is repeating a few times. For example, we were reading in the previous parashot that Abraham was sending Hagar and her son Ishmael to the desert, and then she found a spring. And also it's written about Eliezer, what we talked last week, that he was standing next to the which is also a spring. So there are many, many stories which connecting Abraham to a spring. But I would say also the ways that he was acting was a way of a spring, because a spring, what he is doing is coming from down, and he's bringing water to the world, and the water are coming and coming and covering everything, and it's like floating all its surroundings. It's something that just comes out. And what Abraham was actually doing, he was behaving in the same way. He was bringing good, and he was spreading it to all around him, exactly like a spring who brings water. And he didn't need anyone, Abraham. He just brought the blessings to everyone, and he didn't take. And in a certain way, what Abraham was doing, he was trying to fix the generation of the flood, of the Mabul. Because a spring, Ma'ayan, what he's doing, he's bringing the water outside and giving. And the generation of before the Mabul, before the flood, what they were doing, I don't know how to call it in English, but in Hebrew it's called Bol'an, which means, for example, we have it next to the Dead Sea, that at a certain point, the earth just collapsed inside itself and taking everything inside. So that was the situation in the generation of the flood, because they were just taking from each other. They were stealing, they were just taking all the time. They were not giving, they were just taking. And Abraham was doing exactly the opposite. He was giving with no limits, with no borders. So maybe we can say that if we read the story, so there was a generation of the flood, and then we read about Noach, and very, very fast we're jumping to Abraham. And Abraham was actually trying to fix. And also there is, I think, Admor Zaken, I think, is saying about it that the flood itself was a way to fix what they were doing. Because, again, they were taking, and the world was just dry and empty. Because there was no one who's giving anything. And this is why God brought all this rain to give this world to not to be so dry anymore. And here we see that Abraham is actually doing it in reality. He's coming and just bringing. He's not thinking, he's not doing calculation. I will give and let's see if it's bringing me back. He was just giving, and that's giving to everyone all the time. And sometimes it might be too much. For example, when God is telling him, you will have a son, and God is trying to tell him that he will have Yitzhak. So Abraham is telling him, may Ishmael will live in front of you. And the commentators are saying, why are you talking about Ishmael right now? Why are you blessing him? Like, in the end, we just have troubles because you wanted to bless him. Not everyone needs to be blessed all the time. But that was his personality. He wanted Ishmael to be blessed, and he wanted Yitzhak to be blessed. He wanted to give good to everyone. And I want to ask you for your opinion. Do you think this system of giving is a system which is good to the people who are taking? Okay, not just for yourself that you're giving without borders, but also is it healthy for the people around you who are receiving from you? Daniela.
I think, you have to have a border, because you can't just take. You have to give something back, because if you're taking and taking, at some point you become dependent on the other people, and you can't do anything by yourself, and you only think you become selfish because you think, all the other people are doing it for you and doing all the things. So you don't actually have to do anything.
Okay, so it's like makes the people not independent.
Yeah, like making them selfish, not independent. They just want more.
Okay. Anyone else have any ideas if it's good or bad? Iris?
Does this work? I don't know. Do you hear me?
Yay!
Amazing. Giving and taking, like for both sides, it's a bit complicated. Like usually you make a huge calculation. Like even it's culture-wise, it's different. Like in some cultures, you give more and you expect people to do less. Like for example, in Switzerland, like if you receive a present from someone, from your new neighbor or something, and you don't give it back in between 2 weeks, it's not a good idea. Culture-wise, people decide differently how they deal with this attitude of giving and taking, and it's actually really interesting, like how different it can be, like how different also the borders of everyone. Like when does somebody feel bothered and feel like abused by somebody who's not giving back what he like wants to? You know what I mean.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to share something?
I would like to contribute something. It just hit the question we were all talking last week about in our community, because this is like really difficult to be giving all the time, and especially also I think the fact that someone is giving is also trying to it's taking the opportunity away from the other person to ask for something or to work for it and to appreciate it even more. I think giving without limitations is not good, because then eventually if someone is always giving, then he's not learning how to say no, and therefore it really depends always on the situation. And I personally think one should really try to give a lot, but use it with the sense of that it should come from not a feeling, it should come more from a decision.
Okay, thank you. So I would say it's a system that can work sometimes in a good way, in a different situation or at different levels. Sometimes it can be good to just give. A person can be in a certain situation that he's so dry that he needs someone to just give him and give him and give him. For example, it's a metaphor, okay? There was a field with a grass. There was a period that there was no water and everything died completely. And then the person who was working there was giving water every day for over a month, and nothing happened. And everyone told him you should stop giving water to this field because it's not going to grow. It's dry. That's it. But after 1 month, it started growing, and in the end, it was amazing because this field was so dry that he needed all this water coming with no stop. He needed this belief. And I would also say that in education, for example, when a kid is very, very small, I would say until age 3 or 4 or 5, you need to give him only good. This is what he needs to receive from his parents. He needs to receive love and to feel that we're giving him everything he needs, and to feel surrounded with this non-stopping giving and love. And this is something when we give him all this goodness, we hope that it will build in his personality someone who is strong, who believes in himself, who knows that he's worth something. So we give and give and give because we believe that it will give something good. And actually, when Abraham was giving and giving, it was also the beginning of the world. It was, again, there was a flood. It was a new generation, and Abraham wanted to cover it with goodness in order to build something good. But the problem is the system, and I think Daniela said it, and I think all of you said it in a way, that at a certain point, this spring of giving will be covered and finished, or that the person who takes and we're trying to give to him, he will be covered in a way. And when this system doesn't have borders, it cannot last for a long time. For a small kid, if you give everything and you give him all the time, and you keep giving him when he's already 6 and 7, that's what will happen. Like Daniela described, he will become someone who takes things as granted, like it's obvious that everyone are giving me. He would not know to appreciate. He will take things as granted, or so at a certain point we start spoiling him and destroying what we were trying to build. So we need to know to put limits, and this was the reason why the Pelishtim were covering Avraham wells. It was a symbol, because when we're just receiving and we're not asked to do any effort about it, we're become closed from the inside, like a well that was covered with sand. So now we're getting to Yitzhak, and Yitzhak's system was completely different from Abraham's system, because he used to take the system of the well. And it's not just a well, it's a well who you dig it, and you dug it until you get to the water, to the, in Hebrew we say Maim Chaim, like living water, like water who brings life. And if we say that Abraham was fixing the generation of the flood, so Yitzhak, he was fixing the Tower of Babylon. Yes, this is how you say it?
Babylon, yes.
Yes. Because they were building up, but he was digging down. What they were doing was something which is very, very from the outside, something that everyone can see. We're building something very stable, very high, no one can miss it. It's a lot about the outside, about showing something. And Yitzhak, when he's digging, it's exactly the opposite. He's going to the inside, something that no one can see. When you're walking, you cannot see if there is a well far away from you, because it's in the ground. And his goal is that a person will dig inside to himself until he can find his inner truth. He's not looking on the outside, but on the inside. And to be able to dig a well, you need to work very, very, very hard. You need to put lots of effort, and you need to have patience, and you need to have the ability to go deep. There are things that we can meet in ourselves only when we go very deep. And I'm saying all this effort is only about one well, but we see here with Yitzhak that he was digging a well and they were covering it, and then again and again. It means that you need to be very, very strong in able to go and to go deep. And I would say it's a little bit reminding me about the difference of how you can learn Torah. For example, you can read the rabbis when they are teaching Torah, they are taking all the sources about something, or they're writing a lot. And like you're reading the whole thing, even if you didn't understand parts, you will understand something. And from the other hand side, the rabbis were writing so little that that every word important, and if you don't understand what this word really supposed to mean, what's the deep meaning behind this word, you can miss the whole thing. So they're writing very little, but everything is very, very important. And this is, I would say, the one who's writing a lot, it's more like the system of Abraham in a way. But Yitzhak, when he's giving a word, he wants you to look into it, to find the deep meaning of it. And he's saying, this is not enough, search for more, try to find the deeper level of it. And it's also, I would say, I said at the beginning that all those wells that he was digging, I'm sorry, thank you. All those wells were actually a mikveh. And mikveh is a place that, again, you're meeting yourself for real, because you need to take all of your clothes, all of the outsides, all the things that's supposed to show things to everyone, and you are there very much alone. You can't show anything to no one. You just meet yourself there. And when you're going under the water, it's like you're reborn, and you're really meeting the most inner self of you. And again, what Yitzhak, his message is, the things which are today very popular or very, very shallow, it won't last. We need to search for the deeper things that can actually last. And we see that the Tower of Babylon, this is something that fell down. But when you go deep, this is something which is much more stable. And even the system of Abraham brought so much blessing to the world. But if Abraham didn't have Yitzhak, it will not last. Like Abraham, it's written that he converted so many people, and he brought so many people to the way of God. But if he didn't have Yitzhak, who will go deep, all of his Torah would not last in the world. And there is a very interesting metaphor about Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and I brought it here in the paper. I'm not sharing the screen, so I hope the one who's sharing it can scroll it so we can read it. If not, I will tell it shortly. Let's see. Okay. I guess she's not with us. So the idea is that Abraham, he's like a mountain. Yitzhak is like a field, and Yaakov is like a house. It's in the Talmud in Psachim. And the idea is that this is not what the Gemara is saying, but you can take it in a way of what we talked. A mountain, you go up and then you go down. But the field is something which is more stable. And also a mountain, this is something that everyone can see. And again, this was a message of Abraham. I'm bringing something which is for everyone. But the field, this is something that you can see only if you're standing next to it. You need to be close to it. And in Hebrew, we're saying that be'er, the word be'er, is also coming to say leva'er mashu, which means to explain something. And when you are meva'er, again, it's exactly the same letters. it's to explain something who looked covered, that you cannot understand. We even say לבאר משהו סתום, and satum is the same word to describe a well which is closed. So when you're coming here, you're clarifying something who look completely covered, and you find something understandable and more deep in it. And also in the word be'er, we have the word or, because this is what we're bringing when we're clarifying something. We're bringing light. We're bringing light inside something, and this is what Yitzhak was trying to do while he was digging those wells. I'll give another example. I would say Avraham is like today when we're studying, we have so many sources, and a rabbi can bring to the class, I'm doing it very often, 10 different sources from here, and yeah, let's read everything, and when you finish, you feel like we understand the whole big picture. But Yitzhak, he's like bringing you a source sheet with one paragraph. That's it. Let's read it from beginning to end, word by word, and we'll understand it much more deeply. And I think this is something very, very inspiring to learn, to take something who looks simple from the first look. It's only one paragraph, but to search in it for more meaning, something more deeper. And I think this is something we really need to learn how to do today, because today we are working very often in this shallow, fast way. We know many, many things, or we have, again, so many ways to collect knowledge and to know about things. I remember I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I told her, like, our life today are so much more complicated because we have too much knowledge in a way. A few generations ago, people didn't know which disasters are happening in United States or in South Africa. Like, they just didn't. They have their own life, their own problems, and they were worried about their own problems. But today we have so much knowledge. We're covered with so much that we have our problems, but also so many other problems to worry about, because things are happening there and there, and we're involved in everything. But how often we have the chance to actually go deep into the things, and how often are we able to think for a long time on something? Because today we are so used to do things so fast, like post in Facebook, or to write in Twitter, which you're so limited, so you only write very short, and we cannot go deep into those things. For example, in Israel, I don't know, maybe you have it also here. In Israel, there is a very popular website called Mako, and they have their like different articles, news about everything. But I remember, maybe they changed it, but when I was reading there, next to every article, next to the title, they write there how long it will take you to read the article. So it can take you 3 minutes, it can take you 1 minute, or longer. But why do they write it? Like, why is it important? Because they know that people care. They don't have time. They want to read something fast and move on. And we don't have the ability to read something for a long time, to think about it, to take it deeply. And Yitzhak is offering us this way of going deep into things. And now I want to talk a bit about the character of Yaakov, because Yaakov was, in a way, combination of the well and the spring. Yaakov, he was preparing, it's written here, a cistern. I would call it a pit, but it's a place where the water can come inside. He prepared the vessel for the water. We meet it, I think we will read about it next week, when Yaakov is working for Lavan. Now we have the paper. Never mind. When Yaakov is working for Lavan, then it's written that the sheep or the cattle are coming to drink. And you know those places where the water is waiting for the horses or for the cattle to come and drink. So Yaakov was preparing it for them. And what is the idea of a pit, of this thing? Well, you need to dig it, or you need to work hard to prepare it. It's not something like the spring would just come come from its own. You need to work hard for it. But the water are not coming from the ground. In a pit, the water are coming from the sky, from the rain. You just prepare the vessel, and then you pray to God that He will bring His help and will bring us the water inside. So it's like a vessel who can hold himself all the blessing of God. And we can see here that Yitzchak is like he's demanding us to do everything on our own. You need to work hard, you need to dig until you get to the water. Avraham is doing completely the opposite. He's saying, I'll give you everything, I'll just give you. But Yaakov is in a way the middle way. He's working hard, but he also knows that he needs the help of God for it. He worked hard, now he needs to pray that the rain will come. And we also see that Yaakov is, from all the three fathers, he's the one who's praying the most. He knows that he needs the help of God. Of course, Yitzchak and Avraham knew it as well, and they were also praying. But in Yaakov, this action of praying is repeating much more. And I think it's when you work the work of the pit, the strongest work is to make sure that the water will not run away. So when you prepare a pit, you need to make sure that there is this material who keep that the water are not going away, and that you will not lose not even one drop from the blessings that's coming to you. And to know to keep on the blessings that we're getting, it's also a work. It's not something very easy. And this is a work that we can learn from Yaakov. So in a way, I would say it's three different systems, and each one of them is good at its own time. Or maybe you can say that all three of them are like coming together. We can say that again, the work of Avraham is to bring a lot. The work of Yitzchak is to work hard, and the work of Yaakov is to work, but to know that without God we will not have water. And I would say again, this world today is so shallow, and it's very hard to work hard. If we want to be able to be close to God, or to be able to hear what He's trying to tell us, we have to be willing to work hard and to make תהליכים. Progress? I don't know. I also thought about progress, but this is not the right word that I'm searching for. It's like to build step by step something inside of ourselves. And today, very often,
Baby steps.
What?
Baby steps.
Okay, maybe. I will not find this word. It won't work. But today, the reality is a lot about, again, what's important is the money or the status. But when we have something who is very, very deep, this is something that can create a big change in the world. And there is a rabbi, or he have a few other different titles, that called Daniel Shalit. He wrote many, many books. And I heard about him. I didn't saw it myself, but he's also a musicologue, so he's very, very sensitive also to music. And he was giving a lecture, and when he was giving it, so something with the sound was not working very well. So he was standing in front of the microphone. It's like, do you hear me well? And people said, not that much. So he went and he organized it and he changed it. And again, is it better? Not that much. And 15 minutes out of his lecture, he was just fixing the sound. And people can say, no, what? It's not that important. Yalla, let's start the lecture. Why to waste so much time? But for him, he said, if I have something good to give, the vessel is important, and it's important that people will hear well and will be able to understand well. And I would say it's an example for someone who goes deep, who will not just like, okay, I'll say, it doesn't matter what people understand. Everything is important. And I can also say last example today. So it's very often when you go to the synagogue, you have, it's called alonim. It's like those. It's not a newspaper. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's like a very small newspaper. When you have like very short like Torah ideas about things and like stories, and then in the synagogue you can say you have 3 levels. So you have the people who read the newspapers, you have the people who read the alonim, and you have people who actually read Torah. And again, I'm not saying that those alonim is something bad. They're trying to do something good. They're trying to bring Torah to the people. But to think that if you read this alone, it means that you actually gain something deep. This is not learning Torah, and we should know that to do things very shortly without giving them our heart and our effort will not really bring us something important. And this is maybe why it's written in the parasha that he loved Esav. And it seems to us very weird why Yitzchak loved Esav and Rivka loved Yaakov. It's supposed to be obvious that Yitzchak would love Yaakov as well. But because Yitzchak was so deep, he knew and he could see that also Esav can have a meaning. He could see to the deeper level. And this is why it's written that when it's this sentence, and he will love Esav, and Rivka is loving Yaakov. So he was loving him because of the future, because he knew that something good can come out of him. And Rivka loved Yaakov because of now, right now. She was loving him in the present. And again, we can learn from him that he had the ability to see deep. And I really wish to all of us, it's a huge mission. Like, I don't know, I can tell about myself that I feel like all of us today are like, how do you call it in English? Those troubles to concentrate. Yeah, you understand.
ADD, ADD, ADHD.
Yes, exactly. I think all of us, like, I never had it when I was a child or when I was in high school. But today, it's so hard for us to work or to concentrate without something is jumping on WhatsApp or something is jumping on our computer. And I'm trying to prepare a shiur, but a message in Facebook, and you lose your mind. So I think it's very difficult. And to try to find for ourselves the points or the things that we can try to go more deep. I wish all of us a big luck with finding the way to do it. And yeah, thank you all for joining me today to learn. And yeah, also Daniela. And yeah, thank you very much, and see you all next week. Do you want to say something or to ask something? That's good.
Yeah, I would like to say thank you, because you hit again a very important point, and it's like very practical to my everyday life, and I really appreciate what you said. I can like immediately apply it, and thank you for it.
Thank you, Adasa. Good to see you again. Okay, so good night. And see you all, I hope, next week.
Always up to date, always hitting the point. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next Monday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Rotem. Thank you, everybody.